We don't serve people like you here. Jason's voice cut through Harvest Bistro like a blade, his finger pointing directly at Trevor Washington's chest. Trevor stood frozen in the doorway, his work clothes marking him as an outsider among the white tablecloths and crystal glasses. Every conversation stopped. Phones emerged from purses. "I have a reservation," Trevor said quietly. Jason's laugh was sharp and vicious. "Reservation? Try the soup kitchen down the street. This is a classy establishment." He raised his voice for the entire dining room to hear. "We have standards here." The hostess, Sarah, tugged at Jason's sleeve, whispering frantically, but he brushed her away. "Security!" Jason shouted toward the back. "We need this troublemaker removed immediately." Cameras flashed. The elegant diners watched Trevor's public humiliation unfold like dinner theater. His dignity was becoming their entertainment. But what none of them knew was that this quiet farmer held a secret that would shatter Jason's world completely. What this arrogant waiter learned next made him drop everything he was holding. 6 hours earlier, Trevor Washington's alarm buzzed at 5 a.m., just like it had every morning for the past 15 years. His calloused hands reached across the modest bedroom to silence it before it woke his wife, Denise. The small farmhouse was quiet except for the distant sound of roosters greeting another dawn. Trevor pulled on his work clothes, the same type he'd wear tonight, though he didn't know it yet. His daily routine was sacred. Check the chickens, inspect the vegetable plots, tend to the small greenhouse that barely kept them afloat financially. This wasn't the sprawling operation people imagined when they heard farmer. This was survival agriculture. Every tomato and ear of corn counted. His phone buzzed on the kitchen counter. The caller ID made his heart skip. "Harvest Bistro legal team." "Mr. Washington," the voice on the other end was crisp and professional. "David Brooks here, just confirming. Tonight's quarterly inspection is still scheduled for 7 p.m. Will you finally be visiting the property in person?" Trevor stared out his kitchen window at rows of struggling crops. "Yes, I'll be there." "Excellent. It's been what, 15 years since you've actually set foot inside?" "Something like that." Trevor's voice carried a weight David couldn't understand through the phone. After hanging up, Trevor sat heavily at his small kitchen table. 15 years. 15 years since he'd taken every penny of his inheritance, every loan he could qualify for, every favor he could call in, and bought a failing restaurant in the city. The purchase had nearly bankrupted him, forcing him to live like a pauper while pouring everything into a dream he'd never even seen realized. Denise emerged from the bedroom, her nurse scrubs already on for her early shift. She'd been carrying them financially while Trevor chased what she privately called his obsession. "Today's the day, isn't it?" she asked, pouring coffee into a thermos. "You're finally going to see your baby." "My baby," Trevor repeated softly. Those words held 15 years of sacrifice, 15 years of hope, 15 years of wondering if he'd made the biggest mistake of his life. The restaurant had been his secret. Even his own daughter, Keisha, knew only that Daddy had an investment in the city. She didn't know that investment was the upscale farm-to-table restaurant she'd driven past 100 times, never imagining her father's name was on the deed. Trevor had handled everything through lawyers, accountants, and managers. He'd deliberately stayed invisible, letting others run his dream while he struggled to keep his farm afloat. The restaurant's profits helped subsidize his agricultural losses, but barely. Most months he broke even. Some months he didn't. "Are you nervous?" Denise asked, studying his face. "Terrified," Trevor admitted. "What if it's not what I hoped? What if I built something I can't be proud of?" Later that afternoon, Trevor drove the 40-minute route from his farm to the city, his hands gripping the steering wheel tighter with each mile. When Harvest Bistro came into view, he pulled into the parking lot across the street and just sat there for 20 minutes, staring. The building was beautiful. Warm lighting glowed through large windows. Well-dressed people walked in and out, laughing, celebrating, living the life he'd dreamed of creating. A discreet sign by the entrance read, "Harvest Bistro, where fresh meets flavor." Below it, in smaller letters, "Farm-to-table excellence since 2009. His restaurant, his dream, his 15-year leap of faith. Inside, manager Carol Rodriguez was conducting the evening staff briefing, unaware that the owner sat watching from across the street. "Remember, people," Carol addressed the team, "Friday nights are our showcase. Every table, every interaction, every plate needs to be perfect. The owner rarely visits, handles everything through the legal team, but that doesn't mean we relax our standards. Waiter Jason Mills, barely 24 and full of confidence, leaned against the bar. I've been here 3 years and never even seen a photo of the guy. For all we know, he could walk in here and we wouldn't recognize him. Sarah, the hostess, laughed. According to my friend in accounting, he's some eccentric recluse. Probably lives in a mansion somewhere and counts his money. As long as that money keeps paying my salary, Jason said with a smirk. He can stay as mysterious as he wants. If only they knew their mysterious owner was sitting in a 15-year-old pickup truck across the street, wearing work boots and wondering if he had the courage to walk through his own front door. Trevor checked his phone. 3 missed calls from David Brooks, probably wondering about timing for tonight's inspection. Tonight, Trevor would finally see what 15 years of sacrifice had built. He had no idea he was about to discover something that would break his heart completely. Trevor walked through the front door of Harvest Bistro at exactly 7 p.m., his clean work shirt tucked neatly into his best jeans. The hostess stand gleamed under warm lighting, and the gentle murmur of conversation created the kind of atmosphere he'd dreamed about for 15 years. Jason spotted him immediately. "Whoa, hold up there, Chief." Jason stepped directly into Trevor's path, his body language screaming authority. "I think you're looking for the delivery entrance. It's around back." Trevor blinked, momentarily confused. "Actually, Listen, buddy!" Jason's voice grew louder, attracting attention from nearby tables. "I don't know what kind of game you're playing, but this isn't the place for it." Sarah appeared beside Jason, her perfect hostess smile faltering as she took in Trevor's appearance. She leaned close to Jason's ear but spoke loud enough for surrounding diners to hear. "Should I call the manager?" "Not yet," Jason replied, his eyes never leaving Trevor. "I can handle one confused farm worker." The conversation at table 12 stopped mid-sentence. A woman in pearls actually turned in her chair to get a better look. Her husband discreetly activated his phone's camera. "Sir, I have a reservation," Trevor said patiently, pulling out his phone to show the confirmation email. "Trevor Washington, 7 o'clock. Jason barely glanced at the screen. "Right, and I'm the Queen of England." His laugh was theatrical, designed for an audience. "You think we're stupid? That's obviously photoshopped." More phones emerged around the dining room. The soft jazz music seemed inadequate to cover the tension building near the entrance. "Look at yourself, man," Jason continued, his voice rising with each word. "Look at your clothes, your hands, your boots. Does this look like the kind of place you belong?" Trevor glanced down at his weathered hands, the result of 15 years of dawn-to-dusk farm work to keep his dream alive. These hands had sacrificed everything for this moment. "Money doesn't determine where someone belongs," Trevor said quietly. "In my restaurant, it absolutely does." Jason shot back, chest puffing with authority. "And I decide who eats here. That's my job." The words hit Trevor like a physical blow. My restaurant. If only Jason knew. "Your restaurant?" Trevor asked, his voice carrying a dangerous calm that Jason completely missed. "That's right. I run this place. I've been here 3 years. I know every regular, every VIP, every person who belongs here. And you?" Jason's finger jabbed toward Trevor's chest. "You definitely don't belong." Manager Carol emerged from the kitchen, drawn by the commotion. She was a small woman in her 40s, hired 3 years ago for her efficiency in handling difficult situations. She'd never met the owner, knew him only as a signature on her paychecks. "What's the problem here?" Carol asked, her tone already suggesting Trevor was the problem. "This gentleman seems confused about our establishment," Jason explained, his voice dripping with fake politeness. "I've been trying to help him find more appropriate dining option." Carol sized up Trevor in seconds. Work clothes, calloused hands, obvious discomfort among the elegant surroundings. Her customer service training kicked in, but not in Trevor's favor. "Sir, I'm sure this is just a misunderstanding," she said while practicing diplomacy. "Perhaps you'd be more comfortable at one of the family restaurants downtown. They're much more casual and very reasonably priced." "I have a reservation here," Trevor repeated, his voice steady despite the humiliation burning in his chest. "I'd like to be seated for dinner." Jason stepped closer, his confidence growing with each passing moment. "Listen, farm boy, let me break this down for you. See these people?" He gestured toward the dining room filled with well-dressed professionals. They pay $40 for an entree, $60 for a bottle of wine. Can you even spell sommelier? Nervous laughter rippled from a nearby table. Someone whispered, "This is so uncomfortable." Trevor maintained his dignity. "I understand your concern about maintaining standards. Could I speak with your manager about—" "I am the manager of this section," Jason interrupted, his voice carrying across the restaurant. "And I'm telling you that we have a dress code, we have standards, and we have a clientele that expects a certain atmosphere." The busboy Miguel appeared from the kitchen carrying a tub of dirty dishes. He stopped short when he saw Trevor, something flickering in his eyes. Recognition, maybe, or just confusion. But Jason noticed immediately. "Miguel, don't get involved," Jason snapped. "Take your dishes and get back to work. This doesn't concern kitchen staff." Miguel hesitated, studying Trevor's face more carefully. There was something familiar about this man, something that nagged at the edges of his memory. But Jason's authority was absolute in this hierarchy. The older man reluctantly returned to the kitchen, though he kept glancing back over his shoulder. "See?" Jason turned back to Trevor triumphantly. "Even the help knows you don't belong here." A woman at table 8 audibly gasped. Her dining companion shushed her, but continued recording with his phone positioned discreetly beside his wine glass. Carol pulled out her phone. "Sir, I'm going to have to ask you to leave voluntarily, or I'll need to call security. We can't have disruptions during dinner service." "Call them," Trevor said calmly. "I'll wait." The simple statement sent a ripple of shock through the nearby tables. Jason's confident smirk faltered for just a moment. "You'll wait," Jason's voice cracked slightly. "Wait for what? The cops to drag you out in handcuffs?" "I'll wait to speak with whoever has the authority to resolve this situation," Trevor replied, his tone so level it was almost unsettling. Jason's recovery was swift and brutal. "Authority? Authority?" His voice rose to near shouting. "I have the authority. I've earned my position here through hard work, dedication, and understanding what this place represents." He turned to address the dining room like a performer on stage. "Ladies and gentlemen, I apologize for this disruption. Sometimes people get confused about where they belong in this world." Several diners shifted uncomfortably. A few looked genuinely embarrassed to be witnessing this public humiliation, but most continued recording, knowing they were capturing something that would be shared millions of times within hours. Trevor reached into his jacket pocket, causing Jason to instinctively step back. "I'd like to speak with the owner," Trevor said, pulling out a leather business folder. Jason's reaction was explosive. "The owner? The owner?" His laugh echoed through the restaurant like a gunshot. "Listen, you are a delusional piece of work. The owner of this establishment is a successful businessman who built something beautiful here. He doesn't waste his time with people who show up in muddy boots expecting handouts." "You know the owner personally?" Trevor asked, his hand resting on the leather folder. "I know enough," Jason shot back. "I know he trusts me to maintain the standards he established. I know he expects me to protect the investment he's made here. And I know he sure as hell doesn't want random farm workers wandering off the street demanding to see him." Carol nodded approvingly. "Jason's absolutely right. The owner rarely visits the restaurant. He handles all business through our legal team and corporate management. He's never available for walk-in meetings." "Never?" Trevor's eyebrows rose slightly. "Never," Jason confirmed with absolute certainty. "And even if he were, do you really think he'd want to meet with someone who shows up looking like they've been cleaning stables?" The comment hit its target. Several diners winced visibly. Even Sarah, who had remained mostly silent, looked uncomfortable with the direction this was taking. But Jason was just getting started. The adrenaline of being the center of attention, of wielding power over someone he perceived as powerless, was intoxicating. "You want to know what I think?" Jason continued, his voice carrying to every corner of the restaurant. "I think you saw this place from the outside, saw the nice cars in valet parking, saw the well-dressed people, and thought maybe you could come in here and get a free meal by causing a scene." "Jason," Carol warned quietly, sensing he might be going too far. But Jason was beyond warnings. "No, Carol. This is exactly the kind of situation we need to handle firmly. We can't let people think they can just walk in here and—" "Sir." The voice came from behind them. Chef Rodriguez had emerged from the kitchen, wiping his hands on his apron. Is everything all right out here? The chef was a man in his 50s who had worked in restaurants his entire life. He had the kind of experienced eye that could read people and situations instantly. Something about Trevor nagged at him, a familiarity he couldn't quite place. Everything's fine, Chef, Jason said dismissively. Just handling a small misunderstanding. Chef Rodriguez looked directly at Trevor, studying his face carefully. Have we met before, sir? Jason stepped between them. Chef, please, don't encourage this. The situation is under control. But Trevor and the chef were looking at each other with mutual recognition beginning to dawn. The chef had seen Trevor before, not in person, but in photographs, documents, official communications that came through the kitchen office. I think there might be a serious misunderstanding here, the chef said slowly. The only misunderstanding, Jason snapped, is this man thinking he can waltz into a high-end establishment and demand service. Now, sir, he turned back to Trevor. You have exactly 60 seconds to leave voluntarily before I call security and have you removed by force. Trevor opened the leather folder slightly, revealing documents with official letterheads, legal seals, and signatures. Jason assumed they were fake, stolen, or irrelevant. Props in whatever con game this farm worker was trying to pull. He had no idea he was looking at 15 years of ownership documents, financial records, and legal papers that would destroy his world in the next few minutes. The dining room had become a theater of cruelty, with Jason as the starring performer and Trevor as the victim. Every phone in the restaurant was recording, capturing what would become one of the most viral moments of discrimination ever documented. But they were also documenting something else entirely, the moment before everything changed, when power and assumption collided with reality in the most devastating way possible. The tension in Harvest Bistro reached a breaking point. Jason pulled out his phone with theatrical flair. I'm calling security right now, he announced to the dining room. Everyone will see what happens when you try to scam your way into places you don't belong. He dialed loudly enough for every table to hear. Tony, this is Jason at Harvest Bistro. I need you here immediately. We have a vagrant refusing to leave. Security guard Tony Martinez arrived within 3 minutes, expecting the usual Friday night problem. Instead, he found a black man in work clothes surrounded by well-dressed diners with phones recording, while a young waiter stood over him victoriously. What's the situation? Tony asked, his experienced eye sensing something was off. Trespassing, Jason declared. He's been asked to leave multiple times and refuses. Remove him immediately. Tony looked at Trevor's calm demeanor. Sir, what's your side? I have a dinner reservation, Trevor said simply. Jason interrupted. He's lying. Look at him. Does he belong in a place like this? Obviously running a scam. Tony examined Trevor's driver's license. Clean record, local address, no red flags. Trevor Washington from Valley Farm Road. That's 40 minutes outside the city. Washington? Like the reservation? Jason grabbed the license. This proves nothing. Probably stolen or fake. Trevor opened his leather folder, revealing official documents. He handed Tony a business card. Tony glanced at it, then did a double take. His eyes widened, reading it again carefully. He handed it back without a word, but his demeanor completely changed, stepping back with obvious respect. What's on the card? Jason demanded. Let me see it. I don't think that's necessary, Tony said quietly. I'm the one who called you, Jason snapped. Chef Rodriguez approached from the kitchen carrying a framed photograph. Jason, you need to see this. Not now, Chef. We're handling a security situation. This is part of the security situation. Rodriguez held up a professional headshot from 15 years ago, Trevor in a suit and tie. Jason glanced dismissively. Random business picture, probably found it online. It sits on my desk daily. Came with my employment paperwork 3 years ago. Rodriguez turned the frame over, revealing a typed label. T. Washington, owner, CEO, Harvest Bistro, Inc., S. 2009. The words exploded like a bomb. Carol's face went white. She grabbed the photograph, studying it, then looking between the image and Trevor's weathered face. Jason snatched it away. Anyone can fake a photograph. You're being manipulated by an obvious con artist. But his voice lacked earlier confidence. The photograph was clearly authentic, professional quality, properly aged, legitimately worn. Trevor opened his folder wider, revealing corporate documents, legal papers, bank statements, all bearing his name and relating to Harvest Bistro. Carol took the documents with shaking hands. Property deeds, business licenses, tax documents, all legitimate, all official, all confirming Jason's worst nightmare. "This isn't possible," Jason whispered. The dining room fell silent. Every phone was recorded. Chef Rodriguez placed a gentle hand on Trevor's shoulder. "Mr. Washington, sir, I am so deeply sorry." "It's not your fault," Trevor said quietly. "I kept a low profile deliberately." Jason stared at the documents, his face cycling through confusion, disbelief, and dawning horror. But you can't be... Owners don't look like... Like what, Jason?" Trevor's voice carried steel underneath the calm. "Please, finish your sentence." Jason's mouth opened and closed soundlessly. Everything he had said and done was crashing down around him, and every moment was being recorded from multiple angles. The silence in Harvest Bistro stretched like a tightrope about to snap. Jason's face cycled through emotions: confusion, disbelief, and something that looked dangerously close to panic. "There has to be some mistake," he stammered, looking desperately at Carol for support that wasn't coming. "This is impossible. The owner is..." "What?" Trevor's voice cut through Jason's stammering like a blade. Before Jason could answer, the restaurant's main door burst open. David Brooks, the restaurant's lead attorney, rushed inside with 2 junior associates trailing behind him. His usually perfect suit was wrinkled from the emergency drive across town. "Where is he?" David called out, scanning the dining room frantically. "Where's the situation that required immediate..." His eyes landed on Trevor, and David stopped dead in his tracks. The color drained from his face so quickly that several diners thought he might faint. "Oh my God," David whispered, pulling out his phone to check a contact photo. He looked at the screen, then at Trevor, then back at the screen. "Mr. Washington? Sir? Is that really you?" Jason's confidence crumbled to another degree. "You know this guy?" David's hands were visibly shaking as he approached Trevor. "Sir, I've been your legal counsel for 7 years. We've handled every contract, every business decision, every..." He stopped, looking around at the circle of phones recording everything. "What exactly is happening here?" Carol thrust the corporate documents at David. "Are these real? Please tell me these are fake." David examined the papers for exactly 3 seconds before his professional composure completely collapsed. "These are absolutely authentic. This is Trevor Washington. This is the owner of Harvest Bistro." The words hit the dining room like an earthquake. A woman at table 6 actually gasped out loud. The man at table 12 dropped his wine glass, sending Pinot Noir splashing across the white tablecloth. The soft jazz music continued playing, absurdly cheerful against the backdrop of Jason's world, ending in real time. "The owner?" Sarah, the hostess, whispered, her face going pale. "The actual owner?" "For 15 years, David confirmed, his voice barely above a whisper. "Since 2009. Jason was holding the dinner tray, 5 plates of the restaurant's signature dishes balanced perfectly in his experienced hands, the same hands that had pointed accusingly at Trevor, that had gestured dismissively at his appearance, that had been so confident in their authority just moments before. "But he can't be the owner," Jason said, his voice rising to near hysteria. "Owners don't look like... They don't dress like... They don't..." "Don't what, Jason?" Trevor asked again, his voice deadly quiet. The realization hit Jason like a physical blow. Every word he had spoken, every assumption he had made, every humiliation he had inflicted, all of it had been directed at the man who owned the building, who paid his salary, who had the power to end his career with a single word. Jason's hands went completely slack. The dinner tray, 5 perfect plates worth over $200, crashed to the marble floor in a spectacular explosion of fine china, gourmet food, and Jason's shattered confidence. The sound echoed through the restaurant like a gunshot, and in the sudden silence that followed, everyone understood that they had just witnessed the exact moment when Jason realized he had destroyed his own life. 15 years. Trevor said, stepping closer to Jason as fragments of broken plates crunched under his work boots. 15 years I've owned this restaurant. 15 years I've poured my heart, my savings, my dreams into making this place something special. David tried to step forward. "Sir, perhaps we should handle this privately." "No!" Trevor's voice carried absolute authority now. "This needs to be public. Everyone in this room needs to understand what just happened here. He turned to address the dining room full of recording phones. My name is Trevor Washington. I am a farmer from Valley Farm Road. I work with my hands. I get dirt under my fingernails. I wear work boots and clothes that have seen honest labor. His voice grew stronger with each word. And I am also the owner of this restaurant. I have been for 15 years. I bought this place when it was failing, poured every penny I had into making it succeed, and trusted other people to run it according to my values. He looked directly at Jason, who was standing in the wreckage of the drop tray like a man witnessing his own execution. I came here tonight to see my restaurant for the first time in 15 years, to see what I had built, to see if my dream had become reality. Trevor's voice cracked slightly with emotion. Instead, I discovered that my restaurant, has become a place where people are judged by their appearance, where dignity is stripped away for entertainment, where someone like me gets treated like a criminal for wanting to eat dinner. The dining room was completely silent except for the soft sounds of phones recording and the barely audible jazz music still playing through the speakers. Carol found her voice first. Mr. Washington, sir, this was all a terrible misunderstanding. Jason was just what? Trevor's eyes fixed on her with laser intensity. Just doing his job? Just maintaining standards? Just protecting your investment? He pulled out his phone and scrolled through his recent calls. I've received 17 complaints about discrimination at this restaurant in the past 6 months. 17. All describing exactly what just happened to me. David's face went white. Sir, we never received those complaints in the legal department. Trevor's gaze shifted to Carol, whose expression confirmed David's suspicions. Where did those complaints go, Carol? The manager's mouth opened and closed soundlessly. Around the dining room, phones continued recording, capturing every moment of the power structure revealing itself, cracking apart and reforming with Trevor at the center where he had belonged all along. Jason stood in the wreckage of broken plates and ruined food, finally understanding the magnitude of what he had done. He had humiliated the owner of the restaurant. He had threatened to call the police on his own boss. He had publicly declared that people like Trevor didn't belong in a place that Trevor had built with his own hands and dreams. I'm sorry, Jason whispered, but the words were lost in the enormity of the moment. Trevor heard them anyway. Sorry for what, Jason? For assuming I was a vagrant? For threatening to have me arrested? For turning my humiliation into entertainment for social media? The young waiter's face crumpled completely. I didn't know. I swear I didn't know. You didn't know because you didn't want to know, Trevor replied. You saw exactly what you expected to see, and you treated me exactly how you thought someone who looked like me deserved to be treated. The viral video that had started as documentation of discrimination had transformed into something much more powerful, a moment of truth that would be shared millions of times, studied in business schools and referenced in conversations about power, assumption, and the deadly cost of prejudice. And it had all been captured in perfect, devastating detail by dozens of phones, ensuring that Jason's humiliation would be as public and permanent as the humiliation he had inflicted on Trevor. The power had shifted completely. The truth was revealed, and there was no going back. Trevor looked around the silent dining room, taking in the sea of recording phones and shocked faces. Everyone, please continue your meals, he said with quiet authority. But I'm going to need my staff to join me for an emergency meeting, right now. Within minutes, every employee of Harvest Bistro was gathered in the main dining room. Waiters, busboys, kitchen staff, management. David Brooks stood to one side with his legal documents, while the remaining diners watched from their tables like an audience at a trial. Trevor positioned himself where everyone could see him clearly. My name is Trevor Washington. I've owned this restaurant for 15 years. Tonight was supposed to be my first visit to see what I'd built. Instead, I got a very different education. Jason stood apart from the other staff members, isolated in his shame and terror. Let's start with you, Carol. Trevor's gaze fixed on the manager. 17 discrimination complaints in 6 months. Where are they? Carol's voice shook. Sir, I filed them appropriately. Where? In the internal files. Show me. David stepped forward. Sir, the legal department has no record of any discrimination complaints, ever. Trevor's voice remained calm, but the temperature in the room seemed to drop. Carol, are you telling me that 17 people took the time to file formal complaints about racist treatment at my restaurant, and those complaints never made it past your desk? I was trying to handle them internally, Carol stammered. I didn't want to bother corporate with every little what? Trevor's voice cut like ice. Every little act of racism, every little moment where someone got treated exactly like I was treated tonight? He turned to address the entire staff. I want complete honesty from everyone in this room. Who else has witnessed behavior like Jason's? The silence stretched for nearly 30 seconds. Fear was written across every face. Fear of retaliation, fear of losing jobs, fear of speaking truth to power. Then Maria, a young Latina waitress, raised her hand tentatively. Maria, tell me what you've seen. Jason, She glanced nervously at her coworkers. He treats people differently based on how they look, how much money he thinks they have. Be specific. Give me examples. Last month, a black family came in for dinner. Jason told them there was a 2-hour wait, even though we had empty tables. When the hostess tried to seat them, Jason said the tables were reserved. Were they reserved? No, sir. We seated 3 white families in the next 20 minutes. Trevor nodded grimly. Who else? Another server, Marcus, spoke up reluctantly. Jason makes comments about customers behind their backs, says things like, those people, or they probably can't afford it anyway. What specific comments have you heard? Marcus looked uncomfortable but continued. He calls Latino families probably illegals. He refers to black customers as potential dine and dashers. Asian customers are cheap tippers who split bills 15 ways. A murmur of discomfort rippled through the staff. Even those who had worked alongside Jason seemed shocked by the extent of his prejudice when laid out so starkly. And management's response to these observations? Miguel from the kitchen staff spoke up. We were told not to cause trouble, that customer complaints were being handled at the management level. Trevor walked slowly around the room, making eye contact with each staff member. Let me be absolutely clear about something. I built this restaurant to be a place where everyone feels welcome. Everyone. Regardless of their race, their clothes, their job, or how much money they have. He stopped in front of Jason, who looked like he might be physically ill. Jason, you told me this was your restaurant, that you decide who eats here, that your job was to maintain standards. Trevor's voice was deadly quiet. Tell me about those standards. I was trying to protect the restaurant's reputation, Jason whispered. Protect it from what? From people who might not fit the atmosphere. What kind of atmosphere were you protecting? Jason's voice was barely audible. An upscale atmosphere. And people who look like me don't fit an upscale atmosphere? The question hung in the air like a blade. Jason couldn't answer because any answer would confirm exactly what everyone already knew. Trevor pulled out his phone and began scrolling through messages. I want everyone to hear something. These are actual complaints that were filed about this restaurant. He read aloud. My husband and I were denied service despite having a confirmed reservation. The waiter told us our table had been given away, but we watched 3 white couples get seated immediately after us. Another message. I was told the kitchen was closed at 8 p.m. on a Saturday night. 20 minutes later, I watched them serve dinner to a white family who arrived after me. And another. The waiter refused to bring us a wine list, saying we probably couldn't afford it. When we insisted, he brought us a separate budget menu that other tables didn't receive. Each complaint hit the room like a physical blow. Several staff members looked genuinely shocked, as if hearing about these incidents for the first time. 17 complaints, Carol. 17 families who came to my restaurant expecting to be treated with dignity and left feeling humiliated. How many more never bothered to complain? How many just never came back? Carol's defense was barely a whisper. I was trying to handle it quietly. I spoke to Jason about customer service multiple times. Show me documentation of those conversations. There isn't any written documentation. No written warnings, no performance improvement plans, no record of addressing systematic discrimination. Carol shook her head. So when you handled it quietly, what you actually did was nothing. Trevor turned to the rest of the staff. I want to understand the full scope of this problem. Sarah, as hostess, what have you observed? Sarah, who had been largely silent during the earlier confrontation, spoke hesitantly. Jason. He would sometimes ask me to seat certain customers in the back section near the kitchen. He said it was better for atmosphere management. Which customers? Mostly Black and Latino families. Trevor's jaw tightened. And you complied with these requests? I thought it was restaurant policy. Jason said it came from management. Trevor looked at Carol. Did these seating policies come from management? No, sir. I was never consulted about seating arrangements. So Jason was implementing his own discriminatory policies and telling staff they came from management? The full picture was becoming clear, and it was even worse than Trevor had initially realized. Let me tell you about standards, Trevor said, his voice rising for the first time. I'll tell you about real standards. I worked 18-hour days for 15 years to pay for this place. I ate canned soup for dinner so I could afford the monthly payments. I wore the same 3 shirts for 2 years because every penny went into making this restaurant succeed. Trevor's voice cracked with emotion. I sacrificed everything to build something beautiful, something that would bring people together over good food. And you turned it into a place where people like me, people who look like me, people who work with their hands, people who don't wear expensive clothes, get treated like criminals. David Brooks cleared his throat nervously. Sir, from a legal standpoint, the restaurant faces significant liability. These documented incidents of discrimination could result in civil rights lawsuits, federal investigations, Department of Justice oversight, and damages that could reach millions of dollars. I don't care about the legal liability right now, Trevor interrupted. I care about the moral liability. I care about the fact that I've been unknowingly operating a business that contradicts everything I believe in. He looked around the room again. Here's what's going to happen. Jason, you're terminated, effective immediately. Security will escort you from the premises, and you are permanently banned from this property. Jason's knees nearly buckled. Please, Mr. Washington, I need this job. I have bills, rent, my girlfriend is pregnant. I'm sorry, I swear I didn't know. You didn't know because you didn't care to know. Trevor cut him off. You saw exactly what you wanted to see, and you treated me exactly how you thought someone who looked like me deserved to be treated. He turned to Carol. You're demoted. You're no longer the general manager. You'll work as an assistant server while we implement a complete management restructure. You'll also attend mandatory bias training every week for the next 6 months. Sir, I have a mortgage, a family. You hid discrimination complaints from ownership. You enabled a hostile environment. You failed in your most basic responsibility as a manager. You're lucky you're not being terminated as well. Trevor addressed the entire staff. Effective immediately, this restaurant will implement a zero-tolerance policy on discrimination. Any employee who treats any customer with anything less than complete respect and dignity will be terminated immediately. No warnings, no second chances. He looked at Maria and Miguel, who had found the courage to speak up. Maria, you're promoted to assistant manager. Miguel, you're promoted to front-of-house supervisor. Your first job is to help me identify every other instance of discrimination that's been swept under the rug. The transformations were happening in real time, broadcast live through dozens of phone cameras to social media platforms where the story was already going viral with hashtags like #JusticeServed and #PowerShift. But we're not stopping there, Trevor continued. This restaurant will establish a $50,000 fund for civil rights organizations. We'll implement monthly community dinners for families who might not otherwise afford fine dining. We'll partner with local schools to provide hospitality training for underrepresented students. He paused, looking directly into the nearest phone camera. To everyone watching this, I want you to understand something. Discrimination doesn't happen in a vacuum. It happens because good people stay silent while others are humiliated. It happens because we make assumptions based on appearance. And it stops when we decide that dignity is not negotiable. Trevor turned back to Jason, who was being approached by security. You destroyed your own career tonight, Jason. Not because you didn't recognize me, but because you chose to treat another human being with contempt. That choice has consequences. As Jason was escorted from the premises, his career and reputation destroyed by his own actions, Trevor addressed the remaining staff one final time. This restaurant will be better. Not because I'm forcing change, but because you're going to help me build something worthy of the dream I started 15 years ago. The investigation was complete. Justice had been served, and the real work of transformation was just beginning. The aftermath of Jason's termination settled over Harvest Bistro like dust after an explosion. Trevor stood in the center of the dining room, surrounded by his newly reorganized staff, while phones continued recording what had become the most viral moment in restaurant history. But Trevor wasn't finished. David, Trevor addressed his attorney, contacted the Department of Justice Civil Rights Division Monday morning. We're voluntarily reporting every incident and requesting a full compliance review. David's eyebrows shot up. Sir, most companies minimize exposure, not invite federal investigation. Most companies aren't owned by someone who just experienced discrimination in his own restaurant, Trevor replied firmly. He turned to Maria, his newly promoted assistant manager. Create a feedback system that bypasses management entirely. Every discrimination complaint goes directly to my email and David's legal team. Yes, sir, Maria nodded. Trevor addressed the dining room full of customers. Ladies and gentlemen, I owe you an apology. You came for dinner and witnessed something that should never happen anywhere. He gestured toward the kitchen. Chef Rodriguez, prepare complimentary meals for everyone here tonight. This is what hospitality should look like. A woman at table 8 raised her hand. Mr. Washington, I recorded everything. Should I delete it? Trevor shook his head. Don't delete anything, share it, post it everywhere. This happens daily across America. Usually victims don't have the power to fight back. Tonight they do. He pulled out his phone, opening his banking app in front of everyone. I'm donating $50,000 to the NAACP Legal Defense Fund. Right now, while you watch. The room watched in stunned silence as Trevor completed the transaction in real time. But money isn't enough, he continued. Carol, contact every person who filed discrimination complaints over 2 years. Invite them back for personal apologies and complimentary dinners. Carol nodded weakly. Yes, sir. Miguel, you mentioned kitchen staff being treated differently. Tell me about that. Miguel spoke with growing confidence. Different break schedules, parking areas, uniforms. Jason said it was professional appearance standards, but it felt like keeping us invisible. As of tonight, all staff get equal breaks, parking, and respect, period. Trevor walked to where Jason had stood, where broken plates still littered the floor. Jason said this was his restaurant. He decided who belonged here. He looked around the room. Here's the truth. This isn't my restaurant. It's our restaurant. It belongs to everyone who works with dignity and enters with respect. The transformation was broadcasting live across social media, where millions watched complete reversal of power and justice. Starting tomorrow, mandatory bias training for every employee, quarterly reviews with civil rights organizations, community advisory board to ensure this never happens again. The woman with the recording spoke up. You could have handled this quietly. Why make it public? Trevor considered carefully. Because quiet solutions to public humiliation don't work. Discrimination thrives in darkness and dies in sunlight. Jason isn't unique. There are thousands making decisions about who belongs where based on skin color. His voice grew stronger. Most discrimination victims don't have business cards saying owner. Most people treated me like I had no recourse. I'm fighting back for them. The dining room erupted in spontaneous applause. Phones captured the moment. Chef Rodriguez emerged with servers carrying fresh meals. Mr. Washington, dinner is served the way it should have been. At closing time, Trevor personally thanked every customer. To the woman who recorded everything, your video will save someone else from what I experienced tonight. The consequences were immediate and permanent. Federal oversight, policy changes, ongoing monitoring. But the moral transformation was more important. Complete cultural change that would serve as a model nationwide. Justice had been served, consequences delivered, transformation begun. 6 months later, Harvest Bistro had transformed completely. Maria Rodriguez, now general manager, greeted diverse crowds at the hostess stand. Friday nights included everyone from professionals to families celebrating, blue-collar workers to elderly couples. Trevor's vision had finally become reality. Miguel supervised front-of-house staff with quiet confidence, ensuring every customer received warm welcomes regardless of appearance. The toxic hierarchy enabling Jason's discrimination was replaced with genuine respect and hospitality. Trevor walked through weekly now, knowing every staff member's name and family. They knew him as the farmer who chose transformation over revenge, education over destruction. The community dining program had served 3,000 meals to families experiencing fine dining for the first time. Local newspapers featured the restaurant for innovation in inclusive practices, not scandal. Carol, working back up as a server, had become the program's most dedicated volunteer. I learned that managing means serving everyone, not protecting imaginary standards, she told visiting students. The viral videos reached 50 million views. Harvest Bistro Justice sparked national conversations about service industry discrimination. Hundreds of restaurants adopted similar policies, motivated by positive changes they witnessed. Jason's restaurant career ended, but court-mandated education led him to nonprofit work in racial reconciliation. His public downfall became private growth. Trevor reviewed scholarship applications for hospitality students from underrepresented communities. 25 would receive full funding, carrying forward lessons learned in this dining room. The Department of Justice concluded investigations with commendations for voluntary compliance and comprehensive reforms. Harvest Bistro became a business case study in proactive discrimination response. A young black teenager in the mentorship program approached Trevor. "Mr. Washington, I start culinary school next month. Thank you." Trevor smiled. "You earned this. Now help other young people get chances too." That evening, Trevor reflected on the journey from humiliation to transformation. The restaurant, once judged by appearance, now celebrates diversity. The business hiding complaints now received inclusion awards. 6 months ago, I discovered my dream had become a nightmare. Tonight, that nightmare became hope, not just for me, but for everyone deserving dignity, regardless of appearance, work, or clothes. Change happens when we speak truth, demand better, and build something worthy of our values. Have you witnessed discrimination and wondered how to respond? Have you stayed silent when someone was judged unfairly? Share your story below. Your voice matters. If this inspired you to examine biases and stand for justice, like and subscribe for more courage over hatred stories. Every time we choose dignity over prejudice, we change the world one interaction at a time. Everyone deserves respect. Every voice has power. Every injustice moment offers an opportunity to choose better.